You say, I can't figure this out. I'm confused. There's too much to concern myself about. That's the time to plunge into the ocean. That's the time when you let the world come to you, and you rest in the Word of God that I am the Christ and there's nothing to do. For the Christ of my being goes before me, straightens all the crooked places. It handles every situation. And the important thing about the Christ of my being is that it only works with the Christ in everyone. It has a capacity to cut right through, to get to the center, and in union with that center everywhere, it escorts me to where I am going and to do what I am doing. So that regardless of how complicated the world gets, my world is the Christ world. Now you're in a very complicated world at the moment. Many things are being directed at you from many sources. There are many conflicts. There are many goals. There are many cross purposes. It seems to be a confusion in which it is difficult for an individual to find the surface. He's always underwater. And yet that's not your job, to find the surface. If you know how to rest in the Word, the Christ will always see you through. We have the obligation, the opportunity to let Christ be our way of life, so that we need not get very complicated, as people would have us do. We need not solve deep theories. Everything has been solved by the Christ. It is your job to keep it simple, straight, uncomplicated, and true. I say that for those of us who have found that this modern world has become computerized. Some of us go with the computers and some don't. Some of us understand them and some don't. But in understanding them and going with them, you are given a different kind of knowledge than a computer knowledge. The computer is in the world of man. It's in the world of material. The Spirit is God's computer. And it's a different kind of computer in which everything is automatic, in which no parts go wrong, in which all the answers are always there and they don't change. So don't be intimidated by the computer world. It has its place. It will assist you. It has its wonders. They will help you. But beneath the computer world is another universe. The basic reality of life. We want never to lose that awareness that life is a simple thing. There's nothing in it to figure out. It is run by the Spirit of God, and it goes before me wherever I go. Be confident of the Christ of your being. In the midst of the computer world, it is the only one who knows that the computer world is the dream. Christ is the reality. We're living in a fast dream world these days. Some of us may be intimidated by it. We need not be. Everything is changing. You'll find that in years to come, it won't take 9 months to have a child. In fact, you'll find that in years to come, you may not be here to find it out as a human being. They won't even have children the way we have them today. Everything is changing. When we try to analyze who we are, and we come through to the man, the material man, we say, is that who I always have been? And when you follow science, you find that you weren't always a man or a woman. You were once a gorilla. You were once a tadpole. And you will be something other than a man. The change is never seen because the time difference is so great that we cannot see what we were. You will look back someday and you will wonder, now, I heard of the word human. Was I that? And what was that? You'll see it in some museum somewhere. This is a human. And you'll vaguely recognize it. Just as you don't recognize today your antecedents. You don't know where you've descended from, except science puts it out as a chart. And you go back to the museums and you say, oh, that was the human race. Once you were inanimate, and now you're animate. You'll find there are wallpapers in ancient Greece which you may have been. You were a picture on a wallpaper, and then you became what you know yourself to be. And these changes today are so great that we are changing by the minute. And when we try to keep up with the changes, we find that we lose track of what we are and who we are. Because we, in our reality, never change. We are always the infinite Christ. And if you're able to hold to the truth of yourself and not be persuaded by those things which pass by and claim your attention and tell you that you are now this and you are now that, you will discover that you will find the center of life and you will always be where you belong. We're going into the fifth world, we know that. But what is it? Up to now, we've been a mind. And that has two streets to it, up and down, good and bad. It's been a dream life and we don't know it. We've been dreaming. We dream of matter. We dream of the activities of matter. We dream all that we know. Everything we dream, we can touch. We can move in it. It animates us and we animate it. And yet, there's no reality to a thing in this world. But we're going into another world. we're going into a reality. That's not a dream. The dream was necessary first for several reasons. To show us that we can't determine where we're going in the dream, to make us realize that we need the competence of one who is outside the dream. And the only one who is outside the dream is your reality. In the long run, you've got to come to your reality to find your way out of the dream. You can't find it with the human mind. You can't find it with your computers. All it can do is lead you into an intricacy which does not hit the target, but seems to. And then when you finally relax and accept the simple identity of Christ, you discover the only computer which does not have to be brought to a mechanic for correction, which does not depend on anything else in this universe, which comprises the universe within itself. Slowly you become aware of the handiwork of God. Who never had any machinery to figure out how to make things work. Any objects to put into them, any ingredients to make the steel, the iron. With nothing, God has formed a true universe without hands, without a heart, without heartbeats, without breath, with nothing. And that true universe is your home. So we dive into our ocean of spirit, where suddenly all is regulated and all is one, and all is the purpose fulfilled, and all is correct. Nothing need be added, and nothing can be subtracted. The simplest soul among us is the greatest. I and the Father are one, and there's nothing more to do. If I struggle, it's like the fellow in the straitjacket. It gets tighter on him. My motion must be in the rhythm of the Father. The Son must move in the rhythm of the Father. And only the Son knows what that rhythm is. As I look back at myself, I can see ways and means by which this dream came about. Slowly one aspect of the dream took shape. Then another and another. And each aspect of it pulled another bit of wool over our eyes. Until we were helpless, but full of hope. And still are. Now, Father, I must be free of the dream. I have lived in it long enough, in this make-believe time world. And each time I have had a time body, I've had to lay it aside. At one time, it was the body of an animal. At one time, it was the body of a flower. At one time, it is the body of something else. I have been many, many bodies, and none of them were me. They were all time pictures, which the universe of consciousness fed me. All the people on the earth living in a state of emotional unrest, fear, absence of reality, not knowing where to stand, where to find the living source, and then one here and one there. How old are we? You might ask yourself that. We don't know in truth, because age is not part of spirit. We have gathered information from sources which are not true to spirit. When is your birthday? How can I have a birthday? I was never born. This time body, which we call my body, is the time body that I lay down and begin over again. And in a new form, a new time body, I begin again to look and find not what God placed here, what I'm capable of seeing and feeling and touching, smelling. All very limited means of finding truth. And then mathematics comes, and I think I've got the answer. I can add things up. I can use logarithms. I can figure out, and whatever adds up, I think that's it. That goes up in smoke too. Nothing adds up. Nothing has a stable base. Even the buildings come down. The bridges come down. Tornadoes flow through the city, desecrating everything in their wake. There's no stability in the material world. It can pretend for a long time. There's no stability. And the reason is because it is operating without that substance which is enduring. There is only one substance that is enduring beyond the thousands and thousands and thousands of centuries that will live forever. And unless that substance is mine, I'm going to live in a state of awareness that is temporary. I'm going to borrow. I'm going to pretend. I'm going to hope. But I'm not going to be permanent. Only one substance can do it. And if you're not that substance, you're living on borrowed time. What is that substance? You have never seen it. You go to a jewelry store, you say the diamonds are beautiful. You go to a household appliance store, you say these gadgets are wonderful. You see beautiful paintings. You see marvelous things in the world, none of which are the substance of life. We live on the fringes. How about dwelling consciously in the substance of life? Now you know and I know that he who dwells in the substance of life is lifted up, will find his way into the permanent kingdom of God. And there's no other way. You must be the substance of life to make your entrance. And you can take all the doodads of this world, the most intricate ones and the simple ones, all of which are entertaining, all of which may be very instructive in certain ways. But when you put them to the test, is this the substance of life? You find it, they are not. They are temporary, transitory objects that may be wonderful to see, to use, to learn, to help you, but they lack one substance. You need that substance, for you are approaching a new life now, a life that you have always lived unknown, and you can only enter this life when you have cut your life into that level of being which is called God life. God life which does not deal in these marvelous human things. That rust and corrode. I know I'm speaking to individuals who are looking for that substance. Now, when we learn that no other substance is on the earth, we say, well, that's strange. I see everything but that substance. I can build a house with brick. Isn't that a substance? I can build an automobile with steel. Isn't that a substance? Look at all the wonderful things I can do with all the wonderful things that I can find on the earth. They're substances. But are they? Are they divine substance? With spirit, you can travel further than an automobile can go. With spirit, you don't need the gas. With spirit, you can go 5 million miles a second. With spirit, you're at home, because spirit is the substance of God. And you've got to find it. And you'll find it in one place. You must begin at home. You must begin with, I am that spirit. I'm not going to find it outside of myself. Spirit is my name. And when I do everything but know who I am, I'll never find the substance of life. For I am the substance. But what you're looking at is not that substance. You cannot see I, but it is right where you are. You cannot touch I, but it is right where you are. You can hear I, and that will be the sign of what you are looking for. When I says, I am come, that you may have life and have it more abundantly, slowly something comes to mind. I must be silent. I must not put material self above substance. Material self must go. I must find myself. For myself is the material substance, is not the material substance. Myself is the divine, enduring, eternal substance. How can I find it? Not how can I find it, but I must find it. How will I find it? I cannot live without it. All I can do without it is pretend to be alive. And I cannot pretend very long. I'm given a lifetime and then another one and then another one. Always another one because I haven't found it. When I find it, my lifetimes are over. My life begins. The Father says, do you believe on me? And you say, I do. And the Father says, do you believe what I say? And you say, I do. Then the Father says, you are my son. You said, what is the evidence? How can I understand that I'm your son? What is it to be your son? What do I look like? What do I feel like? How do I act? What do I say? It's all a mystery. The Father says, I will teach you when you become attentive. And I will send my Son into the midst of you. And then one day you find out who that Son is, and you realize in the midst of me is I. I am that Son. Now how can I prevent the duality of being a human being and being that Son? I'm down to the basics. I'll have to read the Bible again, a different way. I'll have to read it with a new kind of purpose in which I'm not reading for entertainment or curiosity. I'm reading to find the evidence that the Son is in the Bible and that the Son is myself. And when I'm looking just for that evidence, I will find a different Bible. And then I have to go into the world with a different eye. I can't be a me looking at the world. If I am the Son and wish to be known as the Son and wish to be the Son, I must act like the Son. I must think like the Son. I must rest in the Father. And I must go to this inner self. It is the most difficult self to find. until it knows that my purpose is a true one, that my purpose is not temporary, my purpose is not shallow, my purpose is to find that self, to live in that self, to be that self, at all cost. And then the Father animates the Son, who animates my being. Somehow, somewhere, there is a response in me, and that response is of myself to that self which is in me, and I find they are one self. When Christ speaks to me, there's no me to hear it. I'm aware that Christ is speaking, and that is who I am. Christ will tell me many things which I cannot hear from any human being in the world. But most of all, Christ will say to me, I need no words to speak to you, for you are the substance of my life. And if you can feel the activity of God in you, the words of God in you, the power of God in you, the vision of God in you, you are beginning to be alive. Now I'm looking inside. Something has drawn me there. I'm not interested in the world of computers outside. I'm not interested in what men can say to me. My only conversation is with the Spirit of God within me. That is the truth. There is no outside truth. And my neighbor, he'll find that same quality within himself. He'll become Christed. We each have that opportunity to seek deep within. And if we are aware that that is the way to find the substance we seek, we'll put our attention and our concentration in that direction, and we listen deeply so that we hear with another ear, that we feel with another feeling. We will then see with another eye. We will discover that our senses are not dependable. We go deeper than the senses. We're not interested in 20/20 vision. We're not interested in being able to hear the other fellow. We're not interested in reading. What we're interested in is that indefinable pulse which says, you have located the source of life within yourself. Now hold it, know it exists, be there, and I will give you to drink. All that you require is oneness with this source. This is the source of life. It is not outside you. You will never find it outside you. But deep within the wells of your own being, I am. When you find this source, that which happens to you is the birth of Christ. That is the beginning of life. That is when you and life are one. And from that moment on, all is provided. The substance of life comes from that source. And you must dig. You must turn everything within you into that withinness until you feel it well up within you. It's as if you were saying, "Speak, Father. Thy Son heareth." Now look inside yourself. Not to your heart, not to your physical body, not to your mind. Look inside yourself. Deeper. Find the you that never began in time. Not the you who became a child and grew to be an adult, but something deeper. Something that was you, that is you, that never grows, that has no weight, no shape, no size, something so deep that it is a mystery to you, and yet you must find it. Only then will transformation begin. When you find that substance of life, which can never be hypnotized by man, crucified by man, or influenced by man, you have found who you are. And you are on your way to the kingdom. I think a common failing is that we get trapped by our minds. We forget that truth does not come through the mind. Truth comes through the soul. And unless you're patient, unless you're aware, unless you're seeking from the soul, you're going to get into the dualities. This seems right, and that seems right, and the other seems right. Everything seems right or wrong, and you can't quite make it out. The mind will trick you that way. There's nothing you can do about it, except get out of the mind. Now, if you haven't mastered the ability to get out of the mind, that's your problem. So we'll first get out of the mind and see if we have made some progress in that. When the mind is still, real still, not thinking, not asserting, not establishing rules, but simply still, then it's up to you to find that place in your consciousness in which the higher, accurate soul tells your mind what you want to know. All true information comes from the soul. And if you've been looking into your mind for a true information, you'll be looking a long, long time. The mind is not the instrument of God. The mind is the instrument of the world mind, and it will lead you on many a fancy chase. It'll tell you one day it's brilliant, and it'll tell you another day it has the answer, and the third day it'll tell you it found a new answer. And you'll be running from one solution to the other, all because the mind is so active and brilliant. And the poor, sweet soul makes no great declarations. It just rests in the truth. And when you're ready to be still in the mind, the soul talks to you. If you haven't had a chance to find that soul intelligence, which is from the Father, then it's no wonder that you're in a state of confusion, and it's time for that to stop. Your soul is the true representative of the Father. You're going to have to live in it a little while before you're eligible to step up the ladder into the fifth world. But that is going to be this time around. You're going to have to develop this soul fidelity, the soul attention, the soul which does not speak back. And when your soul is true, when you have found the center of your soul and you can listen there, you know that you have found the hidden path. The words will come, they'll well up within you. They may be one word or two or 5 or 10, whatever is required at the moment to build your confidence. And you know, I have a soul, and my soul turns out to be my identity. I am soul. My soul is one with my spirit. I am spirit. My soul and my spirit will be wed, and their child will be the Christ. And I am all three. I am the Christ. I am the product of my soul and spirit. And these three in one is who I am. And what I say and what I receive, I know to be the truth. And when the truth doesn't come, I'm not in my soul. I'm not in my spirit. And the Christ cannot speak to me. Do you see the ingredients of truth? The Christ will speak to you when you're in your soul and your spirit. You won't have to monitor the words. They will be the truth. And that truth can be anything that is required. It can heal the sick, feed the hungry, raise the dead. It has always done so. It always will. Let us dwell in your soul. That means the mind must be still. And the mind is not still when it has ideas, good ideas or bad ideas. But when it is without idea, it is still. And then he comes whose right it is, and you are blessed. The minute your soul speaks to you, you are one with the Father. That is where life begins. There's been a little degree of clarity in the world with this. Some people have had other ideas, and other ideas have been producing confusion where clarity was required. The soul is the only one representing the Father. All the brilliant intellects of the world do not represent the Father one iota, unless the Father is speaking through them, through their soul. And a brilliant man can be a soul, just as you can be a soul without being brilliant. The soul has filtered all of the universe, is ready to welcome you and say, come this way. The soul has filtered all of the universe, is ready to welcome you and say, come this way. I will take you on the path that leads to freedom. I will take you on the path that leads to your spirit. I will take you on the path that leads to knowing the identity of the one and only Christ. You'll find all three within you. And then the three are one. And that one becomes known to you as you. I am the Christ. I am the Spirit. I am the soul. And when that happens, you are the child of God, realized. Not the child of God in theory, but realized. And that is when all that the Father hath is thine. That is when all needs are fulfilled and you walk forth looking as you look now, but proving that you are the child of God. What isn't there becomes there. What is needed shows up. What you think are not your thoughts, but my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. And so you learn that you live a different kind of a life than a human life. It doesn't depend on people. It is a life that is fed by the divine. Now I suspect that many people here have had their taste of the truth. They've had their taste of the soul talking, the spirit talking to the soul, and Christ being the oneness that binds them together with the Father. They have had the experience of that which happens, which is not planned, that which shows up in the invisible. They've had the experience of certainties where around them was chaos. When you have had this, how fortunate you are, because you know it will always be there. And you're not floundering in the dark saying, where's my Father? What must I do? And so you must build this experience. This experience will come to you. It must come to you. But it cannot come while you are being misled by that mind. You must find a way to listen deeper than your mind. Joel has written something about these things. I have a passage picked out I want to read to you, in which he talks about the nature of illusion. And when you read it or hear it, you find a chord and you respond, yes, I understand that. That's what's happened to me a number of times. And then you find, because it's happened to me, I have found a way to prevent it from happening to me. And let's just start on that trend. This is in the Wisdoms. The Infinite Way Wisdoms. And I think if you haven't read them, you will see that they are geared to opening the door for you to show you some of your own experiences and what they have been and why. He says to begin your spiritual life with the understanding that all conflicts must be settled within your consciousness. That sounds simple enough. The only trouble is that we're in a hurry to settle these conflicts. Sometimes they demand haste, and we don't quite get to the bottom of it. To settle them within our consciousness means the soul must enter and replace the human mind. Now, I need not say much more, but if you have a human mind conflict that is not being settled by your soul, you're going to have it again and again. Because the soul is the master. It must tell you what you are to do. I wanted to get that across because I want to go to the New Horizon chapter. I remember reading this chapter many years ago, and I was told to read it 30 times. 30 times. And I thought, well, now, I'll start. And I'll probably read it 30 times and find out why. And in the 8th time that I read it, that was my last time. I learned why I was told to read it 30 times. It could have happened in the 8th time or the 22nd, but it wasn't going to happen in the first few times. And all of a sudden, secrets of the infinite way were there. All of a sudden I found the layers and layers of awareness that make up an individual. And then as I pursued this reading of it, I found out things that were not known to a human mind. The unfoldments were so dramatic to me. I could sense the presence of non-human beings. Who were they? I didn't know. They were spiritual beings. I didn't know what a spiritual being was. But I was learning that beneath the surface of visibility, beneath the surface of the mind visibility, is another life, another region, and there is life in that region. And I learned that Christ was beneath the surface of the human mind. And that was for me a very important discovery. And I knew then that I had to go beneath the surface of the human mind to find the Christ. Little did I know that I was trying to find myself. And that leads to finding yourself. So these infinite way wisdoms, if you take them on the surface and you read them, and you say that means this and this means that, you'll have to go back and read them again. And I would like to give you the same advice I received. Read the infinite way wisdoms 30 times. You may not go that far. You may decide in 4 times you've come to a higher truth than you realized in the first time. Or you may go to the 8th like I did. You may go to the 12th. But read those in such a way that every time you read them, you have benefited by having read them before. And what you saw before, you're trying to find a deeper meaning. And so it comes. And then when you find the deeper meaning, you can't believe what you have found. I mean, you just don't believe it. You look at the walls and want to talk to the walls. How could I have missed this? You find the invisible universe. And it's a real one. And the visible means nothing. Absolutely nothing. The visible is a shallow imitation of the invisible reality. It doesn't come easy, but it comes. And if you're patient, if you invite the Spirit to look through your eyes, you'll find your vision changes. You're not a 20/20 reader. That's for human beings. I'd like to read this to you. The sense, which presents pictures of discord and harmony, inharmony, disease and death, is a universal mesmerism. If the sense that presents these problems is universal mesmerism, isn't he not saying that the senses are lying to us? If they are universal mesmerism, then they're not there. So therefore, the pictures of discord and inharmony, disease and death are not there. Only the pictures are there. When did you come to grips with that? Can you think of a recent time when you overlooked this fact? That those senses cannot report the facts to you? They can only report surface facts. They can only report facts that are not facts. The senses can only bring to you images. And these images are what we think is reality. Even disease and death are sense images. Well, if that's the case, this certainly is a chapter I've got to read. Because all the time I thought that what I see is a fact. They're burying this man today. That's a fact. He's got cancer. That's a fact. He's got an unruly temperament. He's always battling with the law. That's a fact. But it's not. That's the surface. How can he go deeper? Well, he can't. He's stuck with his belief that these things are real. I know they're not real. I know that a man died because his body was in time. That's the only reason he died. You cannot die in a body unless it's in time. And everybody who dies, dies in a time body. We all have a choice of not dying in a time body. But the choice is too difficult to make, it seems. We do not spend our time getting out of time. We think, how can I get out of time? It's all over, wherever I go. But is it? I don't see a wristwatch on God. I don't see a calendar in God in his office. Man lives by the clock and the calendar. In time. He surrounds himself with time. He builds a house, it takes 2 months. He has another project, it takes 3 weeks. Everything he does is figured time-wise. And it gets done early sometimes, and sometimes it gets done late. But it doesn't get done in God's universe. That's all we've got so far, just 2 lines of statements. The universal mesmerism has to do with disease, death, discord. Now what's going to make that death and disease and discord not a mesmeric activity? When you take the mesmeric activity away, there's no disease there. There's no discord. There's no death. Of course, if it were possible to move into the next realm in time, we'd all die there instead of here. But you've got to get out of time to prevent death. And unless you become aware of it, to the point where your motor is running and you're determined to get rid of it and to overcome the belief that there is time and to see why, you'll die in a time body. Everybody does, except those who have become aware that time bodies are the cause of death. God did not create time. Man did. And that's why man dies in time. The Christ never lives in time. And those who follow the Christ learn how not to live in time. How are you going to learn that? You're going to have to look at ways and means in your own mind. You're going to have to read Joel's suggestions. You're going to have to listen to tapes. You're going to have to set your mind above your soul and listen. The soul never works in time. You've got a job to do, and you've got to be willing to give up the old ways. You've got to live in the soul as much as you can. Well, you say, how can I do that? You've got to find a way. And the simplest way is to not think. You cannot think with the mind and be in the soul at the same time. So there would have to be periods in which the stillness of the mind is your exercise. In the stillness of the mind, the soul comes upon the scene. Let's try it just a brief moment, and you'll see what I'm saying. Can you hold your mind still? I'm quite certain that a great number of us held our minds still because you could feel it. You could feel the soul rise. Now, when that happens to you, it's very hard to find a negative in your life. No negatives come through the soul. And you won't enter into confusion, criticism, or arguments with the mind when you realize the soul holds you from these things. In the soul, you're able to dwell in divine thought, because what you think with the soul, you don't think with. It comes to your soul. Your thoughts come from another direction. They come from the infinite. And you find you're thinking, but you didn't instigate that thought. Something else did. The soul seems fearless. It isn't worried about human problems. Not because it's indifferent, because every human problem is solved in the soul and by the soul. And when you have a pure soul experience, you find in a pure soul experience, you're not concerned about the problem. It was either an illusion to begin with, or it's been solved. Let's go deeper with the soul now. Let's hold it there. Do I find it hard to think when the soul is active? Can I perpetuate my belief in a problem? That would be confusion. You cannot think with the mind and be in the soul. So you'll have to give up the mind at the moment and rest in the soul. And now where's the problem? You say, well, I'm just delaying the solution of it. Maybe you're not. Maybe the soul is going to show you that there is no problem. When you're high enough in the soul, all things that you thought were problems, even serious problems, are seen in their true light. You say, what about this disease or this death that's impending? How does the soul solve that? You'll have to get into the soul to find out. All of the healings in the Bible were conducted above the level of the human mind. And the higher the consciousness of the individual, the deeper, the more quickly the healing is achieved. "39 years a cripple? Why? Because I couldn't walk. I didn't know how. I didn't get to the water in time. There was always someone there who beat me to it." You sure that's the reason? Let's try another method. Let's realize that you are the Christ. And even though you can't, let me try. The Christ is not a cripple, and if I realize that you are the Christ, if I have the success in realizing your identity, I won't be thinking that with the human mind. Realization is not in the human mind. If in my consciousness I can find the self of you who is known as the Christ, you can walk again now. Now you say, well, Jesus could do that, but we can't. Well, at least we know he can do it. And now let's try to do it. Let's keep trying. And remember that the only time you can't do the things that Jesus does is because you haven't gone high enough in your consciousness. There's an impediment. You stopped at the mind level. You didn't get into the higher levels of awareness. You still are confused by the fact that you see a physical being. Jesus never saw one. Never saw a physical being. They were all around him, all being healed around him. He never saw one. The Christ always saw with the Christ vision. He saw the healing before the individual was healed. If you're in the human vision, you're not going to do that. In other words, you must live in that level of awareness which sees Christ everywhere. You don't see a cripple. You don't see a person with a disease. The human eye sees that, but you are not looking with the human eye. You are looking with the Christ eye. I know there's work to be done, but that's where you do it. You learn how to see with the Christ eye, how to know with the Christ mind. Have you that mind that was in Christ Jesus? There's work we can do, and we're going to find a way to do it. We're going to have to move higher and higher and higher. The sense illusions are for those who use the senses. We all have the same senses. But the senses are not allowed to come into play and make decisions. In Christ awareness, you see perfection everywhere. You don't tolerate imperfection. You don't see imperfection to be corrected. You see only perfection, no matter what you're told. And even after you fail, you still see only perfection. Because ultimately, that's what you will see. And you don't see it with your human eyes. You don't look out at imperfection. You're looking deep into yourself. The senses, which present pictures of discord and inharmony, disease and death, is the universal mesmerism which produces the entire dream of human existence. Now, do you see what we're up against? We're not facing a dream here and a dream there, a discordant dream here and a good one there. We're facing the dream of human existence. You see why we must come to Christ? This is no child's play. This isn't restricted to a city. Human existence is a dream. And because we are looking at it with a mind which is hypnotized and has no capacity to outgrow the dream, that's our predicament. And it's better to know what your predicament is when you start than to find it so deep that you can't move out of it. If I am dreaming with the human mind, and I will always dream with the human mind, then I must find another implement which is not dreaming, and it is not that mind. I cannot clear the human mind from my dream. That is the nature of the human mind. How many are aware of that? How many have realized that no matter how long I live, this human mind will always be in a dream? And if you don't agree with it, it makes no difference. That's part of your dream. Why do we seek then the Christ mind? Because it is not in the human dream. So we go deeper and deeper and deeper to find that mind, that same mind which was in Christ Jesus in us. It's not going to be a different mind. It's going to be the divine mind. You have the capacity to find the divine mind in yourself. And when you find it, you'll know it. Suddenly everything changes. This fellow who was sick says, "I'm not sick, I feel fine." You say, "What did that?" Well, it wasn't your human mind. The higher consciousness prevailed. And then the mesmerism is gone. And so, everyone who comes to Jesus touches the Christ mind, there goes the mesmerism. But was that Christ mind only in Jesus? No. You are the Christ and I am the Christ. We have the Christ mind. The very same mind that was in Christ Jesus is in every one of us. I don't see it. I don't feel it. They can take an X-ray of me and not find it. They can take an X-ray of anything they want and not find God either. The Christ mind is invisible to human sense. God is telling you that the Christ mind is in you. If you hadn't realized it, it's time to know it. And the Christ mind that is in you is there for the reason that you, in your Christ mind, can walk out of the mesmerism, out of the dream world. That's our task, we know it. At one time, it would have seemed like an impossible task. Now, we know it's the most glorious occupation in the universe, the chance to find the Christ mind in me, the chance to find the Christ mind in you, the chance to bring the Christ mind into daily life. And we all have that chance. Now that Christ mind has to be handled in such a way that you don't move it aside. It demands that you give love as well as get love. It demands that you look at everyone and realize this is the invisible Christ mind, And this man is mesmerized. He's mesmerized a little worse than this one, maybe a little worse than me, but we all have that mind. Now, who's going to stop us from releasing it? Just our own ignorance. I'm going to say, this man is a blackguard. This man has terrible morals. What have I accomplished by that? I've pleased my own vanity. This man is a governmental thief. This man is an adulterer. What have I accomplished? Have I found the Christ?
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into our channel. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like button below. It really helps us out. And why not share this video with your friends? Spread the word and help us reach more people. Lastly, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss a new video from us. Thanks for watching and see you next time.